Hello, my name's Andy Connell and you're watching a video produced for the purposes of foundation degree students studying internet systems. This particular lecture is going to be looking at the components of a website, how these different components are created and what languages are used to create them. First off, I've divided the different aspects of the website into 4 different categories. The content, which are the text, the graphics, the sounds, etc. The layout, this is how the page is divided up visually. The color and the style which are being applied to the page, and interactivity, and by that what I mean is how the web page is going to respond to events initiated by the user. The languages used to control these 4 different elements break down into 4 different categories. First off, we have HTML. HTML we will be looking at later on. It's a surprisingly easy and straightforward language used to create content inside web pages and lay it out. CSS refers to the language used to create style inside a website, things like color and font. We'll look at that later on. JavaScript is for programming the web page and what's called client-side programming, and what I mean by that is how the browser responds to the user's input, and I'm distinguishing that from how server-side programming, which is how the database primarily responds to it. We will look at the differences between client-side scripting and server-side scripting in a minute. First off, content. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and a markup language is the content of the site, so that's your text and your images and your sound, along with information about how it should sit on the page. And the term markup actually comes from the old printing trade, where an editor would mark up a manuscript prior to it going to the printing press. So the printer would look at the annotated notes, the marks made by the editor, and lay the page out accordingly. Web editing tools such as Dreamweaver or Microsoft Expression or whatever, these tools will generate HTML code, and they'll also generate some of the other elements such as CSS. Layout. Web pages, you'll often find, will have a banner, they'll have sidebars, they'll have a body section, they'll have a navigation section. The idea is that when you create a website, you're creating a template view, and the same template is replicated throughout the site. So the banner's always in the same place, the body is always in the same place, the navigation links are always in the same place. So this idea of template and layout. To do that, HTML uses tags such as table tags, div tags, and frame tags. Color. The web is obviously a visual media, and inside visual media, color is very, very important. The first note is that when we talk about color in HTML code, is to make sure that we spell it incorrectly. So there's no U in it when we spell it. Browsers are obviously things like Internet Explorer and Firefox. Browsers recognize 16 basic colors. That's your standard type of colors. The human eye, however, recognizes millions. Some say 7 million, but obviously I don't know who's counted that one. And because of this wide range of colours which would be denied to us if we just went for these 16 basic web-safe colours, a way of referencing colour has developed which uses hexadecimal code. Now, if we said that the colours on our internet web page, on our screen, our computer screen, are made up of differing concentrations of 3 basic colours, and that's red, green and blue. By changing the relative quantities of red to blue to green, we can come out with a very, very wide palette of colours. So inside the hex color code numbering system, there are actually 255 shades of each colour. So that gives a total possible combination of 255 times 255 times 255. That's our 7 million colours. So if we have a look at that in more detail, and we'll see where hexadecimal kicks in. Hexadecimal is a base 16 counting system, so it's not like, at the moment we use denary, we use decimal counting systems, and we use 0 to 9, and from 0 through to 9 constitutes the 10 digits of a decimal counting system. Well, in a hexadecimal we're base 16, so 0 to 9 is not giving us enough numbers. So consequently, after 9 comes the number A, followed by the number B, C, D, E, and finally the number F. The number F in a hexadecimal counting system would equate to the number 15 in a denary or decimal counting system. Now, because hexadecimal numbers go up to 16, you can count a lot higher with them than with fewer digits, if that makes sense. So actually number 255 in a decimal counting system accounts to the hex number of FF. Hex color codes, as I say, written red, blue, green, so if we had FF, 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 what we'd have is maximum red with maximum green with maximum blue, and if you maximize all of them, what you wind up is with white. If you wanted the most red color possible, it would be FF0000, because that would be maximum red with minimum green and minimum blue. So we can change the values, produces our hex color code. Hex color codes are always preceded by a hash key, hash mark. We've talked about styling, and styling is controlled by CSS. CSS standing for Cascading Style Sheets. So color will be, or should be, declared inside our CSS code rather than our HTML code. Another feature of CSS is it can obviously handle more than just the color. The other elements might be spaces, alignments, fonts are very, very important, sizes of things, etc. And one of the reasons that people use CSS is because a single CSS page can be used by multiple web pages. It can be referenced by multiple web pages. So the same script can be called in by many, many pages, which means, of course, if we make one change to the script, that change is cascaded out across the website, hence the name Cascading Style Sheets. Interactivity. Interactivity is where the web page does something. It's just the same as an app on your mobile telephone. If the app does something local, maybe it's a conversion factor, it takes centigrade into Fahrenheit, and it does it locally, i.e. apparently on the client's PC, then the app would generally be written in a language called JavaScript. JavaScript is not Java, that must be remembered. It might look a bit like Java, but it isn't. And this JavaScript, which does something locally on the browser, it's a program which runs locally on the user's PC. The script itself is generally embedded into our HTML. Right, so the JavaScripts are basically run in response to an event. That's the page loading up, the user clicking something. There's loads of pre-written JavaScripts available. The other type of scripting is scripting which happens remote from the user's PC. It's scripting which runs programs on the server. The server is the thing which hosts the website, and the browser is the thing which serves to the local PC. So server-side scripting is generally performed by PHP, or Microsoft have a similar product called ASP. There are other server-side languages other than those two, but they're the two main ones. And they will generally be used to manipulate data on the remote PC, on the server PC. So it might be things like the logs or shopping carts, anything like that which is run remotely, generally associated with a database. So, summing up, we've got our 4 areas of operation, each one relating to a different bit of code. Content, primarily HTML. Styling, primarily CSS. Client-side programming, JavaScript. Server-side programming, PHP or ASP. And that concludes this lecture.